This episode of the Focus Action Results podcast is brought to you by Accelerate Performance, creators of the Focus Action Results course and the FAR Planner. Welcome to the podcast that promises you'll be much more productive with me, your host, Ralph Varcoe. Well, hello and welcome to the next episode of the Focus Action Results podcast with me, Ralph Varcoe. This is the podcast where we help you to focus, take action, and get results. For you to learn, to grow, and expand. And why am I talking in threes? Well, the reason is that this episode is all about the power of three. Now, I've got a little confession to make. This is episode 5. So I think we've done a really poor job at planning, because it would have been much better if the episode about the power of the number 3 had been episode number 3. Nevertheless, we are here. It is episode number 5, and we are going to talk about threes. Now, why would we want to talk about threes? Well, 3 is a very powerful number. In history, if you look back, you see Pythagoras said the meaning was deeply significant. It's a perfect number. Harmony, wisdom, understanding. See what I did there? Threes. If you think about time, and you think about a timeline, you go past, present, and future. Or birth, then life, and then death. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end to our lives, but there's also a beginning, a middle, and end to a story. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to pretty much anything you put your mind to. If you think about the divine, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And then there are the phases of the moon, and this is where it's said to have originally come from. 3 phases of the moon, represented by 3 moon goddesses of Hebe, Hera, and Hecate. So 3 has always been a powerful number for many reasons. And then you look at things like a language. In China, 3 is considered to be a very lucky number. It's thought that that's the case because it sounds a lot like their word for life. 4, by the way, in China, in Chinese, it sounds like the word for death, and so it's considered to be an unlucky number. There are examples of 3s everywhere. We just have to look at the world of sport. We talk about the hat trick. They scored a hat trick of goals, and that's a lucky thing. It's a good thing. The triple crown in rugby, the triple axel when ice skating and jumping or gymnastics. So those things come in 3s. Now, in the world of journalism, it's quite a rigorous process. They will look at many different facets and then draw a conclusion. Now, if something happens once, well, it's interesting, but what's provable about that? If it happens twice, okay, but it doesn't set a trend. If something happens 3 times, well, then all of a sudden you've got a pattern. So 2 is a fluke, 1 or 2 is a fluke, 3 is a pattern. And so that is used in journalism. It's also used in comedy and in writing and in literature. So if we look at comedy first, there is the rule of 3. So what you'll do is you'll establish a pattern, and then you will come up with one thing and then another thing. The audience thinks that the third thing is going to be a pattern relating to the first 2, but the punchline is often something which is a surprise that comes after the first 2 elements of pattern have been set up, and the punchline is the third thing that comes. If you do if there's a list of things in a joke which is 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all the same, it becomes a bit tedious. It actually takes away from the punchline that comes at the end, because you have actually established a proper full pattern before you deliver something. So it just seems like it's in the wrong place. But if you deliver 1, 2, punchline, you're going to get a good laugh. So that's how comedy writers will write their jokes and will deliver them. Now, in literature, we can look at things like Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. He says, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." Or friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Although actually he may not have had a received pronunciation British accent, but there we are, that's Julius Caesar. In Dickens's Christmas Carol, Scrooge gets visited by the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of the future, or yet to come. Aladdin, how many wishes does Aladdin get? Does he get just one? No, he gets 3. There are 3 ugly sisters in Cinderella, 3 witches in Macbeth. Goldilocks has how many bears? It's 3. How many musketeers are there? Oh yes, that's 3 as well. And 3 little pigs. You see, there's a pattern here, lots of 3s. Now again, these patterns are everywhere. They pervade everything. For example, in public speaking. Now here's an interesting thing. Winston Churchill gave a speech where he talked about blood, toil, tears and sweat. Now think about those words, and actually what do you know about those words? When you think about them, do you naturally go, oh yes, it's blood, sweat and tears? Well, that's because that is what the phrase has become. Because the 4 things that Winston Churchill put in his speech are just a little bit difficult for us. It's more natural for all of us to be thinking in terms of 3s. It's such a powerful number. So him saying blood, toil, tears and sweat has been turned by us as people into blood, sweat and tears. There's also another thing when you can observe this if you're having a conversation in a group. Generally, and this has been studied, generally what will happen is if somebody is speaking and they are providing illustrations as to what they're speaking about, the other people in the conversation will generally wait until the speaker has said the 3rd thing. Once they've said the 3rd thing that backs up the point they're making, well then they feel it appropriate that they can speak and they can actually offer their own. It's quite interesting because people want to hear the 3rd thing. It doesn't feel complete unless the 3rd thing has been said. If a speaker decides they want to go on beyond the 3rd thing and they go into a 4th and a 5th, what you'll find is that other people will just interrupt because we've heard the 3. We don't need the 4th or the 5th. It's just going on and on and on. So that's the phenomenon. Nobody's taught us this. It's just part of our ingrained psyche that 3 is such a powerful number. Right, so other things. Let's look at, well, slogans, catchphrases that have grown up, been around for many years. Some of them are quite new, and we'll come to those, but some of them, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 3 things there. There's liberté, égalité, fraternité for the French. There's veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Julius Caesar. In the UK, coronavirus, the pandemic that's caused so many deaths and such disruption over the 2020 that we've had so far, and it looks like it's going to be going well into 2021. But the government has come out with phrases, three elements to those phrases, one example of which is stay alert, control the virus, and save lives. Regardless of what anybody thinks about those are 3 things, and people remember 3 things in 3s. Then you've got the wise monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. There is literally no planning that has gone into the fact that I was talking about what politicians have put out as slogans, and then I went straight into talking about wise monkeys. No planning whatsoever. Right. Now, what about advertising? So advertising, really interesting. Advertising is all about the psychology of how people think. So having studied the way that people operate and respond to things, it's clear that a good copywriter will take that, knows that three things are what people will remember, that people want things in groups of three, and they write in that way. So there are frameworks, for example, the PAS framework, where you state the problem, you agitate that problem, you animate it, so that you put it in the context of the customer's world and what it means to them and how difficult it really is and what the problem is doing to them. Then you provide them with the S of PAS, which is the solution. And by taking them through those three steps, you end up taking them on a journey. So the first thing is that you're attracting the reader to look at the copy, to look at the advert, to read further. You're then interesting them. And that interest enables them or makes them want to continue to read. So if you state a problem and you say, this is an issue for you in this kind of environment, and we know that there are lots of people who have this problem. Well, if you stop there, people would just go, yeah, you're right. But what you do is you carry on and you go, and what this problem means for you is you're not getting as many sales, you're finding it difficult to maintain rapport with your clients, or your staff turnover is too high, which has an impact on X, Y, and Z. So the customer or the person reading this advert looks at it and goes, gosh, yeah, that is exactly. So you've stated my problem and you have explored and told me about the reasons why that problem is actually such a big problem. And then the last thing the copywriter will do is they will say, but here's the solution. We'll come to your rescue. We can provide you with this service, this solution, this product, which enables you to actually remove that problem completely. And that's the convincer at the end, the solution that's provided. So that framework is very, very powerful. Very simple, three things: problem, agitation, and solution. And you'll see it. Have a look at adverts, a web copy that you read of any of the products or services that you're interested in buying, things that you look at that are put out on social media. And if you go into a sales page for any particular product or service of any company, and they've got a good copywriter, they will be putting together a flow which is in those three areas: problem, agitation, and solution. So it's all about attracting the reader, interesting them, and then convincing them so that they'll believe it. So that's around advertising. And yeah, look, here is an interesting one. Mozart. So everybody knows who Mozart is. One of the greatest classical composers. A bit bonkers, died young, and if you've never seen it, I absolutely recommend that you watch the film Amadeus, or that you go to the play, should it come back on in the country that you live in. It's the most brilliant tour of his life, and of his brilliance and of his madness and how he died, and this world that he lived in where he was competing against the likes of Salieri, who was the most prominent musician of the time, and who was really threatened by this young, talented upstart, Mozart, who came along and effectively everybody was being bowled over by. It's an amazing story, and the music is amazing. So Mozart was a Freemason, and the number 3 is quite key to the Freemasons. And there was a knock that the Freemasons would have to make to be able to get access to the lodges where they would meet in Vienna at the time. And they would knock 3 times. So 3 is really associated with the Freemasons. Mozart's Magic Flute, one of his most fabulous operas, makes heavy use of the number 3. It's written in E flat major. Now, for those of you that aren't musicians, you won't know this, but E flat major has 3 flats in the key signature. Right, it has a B flat, an E flat, and an A flat. There are 3 keys, 3 flats in the key signature. And it opens with 3 chordal gestures. So 3 chords that come through, And that is mimicking, it's imitating the secret knock of the Freemasons and what they would use. So going through into the opera itself, the main character is rescued by 3 ladies. He's then guided by 3 boys who lead him to Sarastro's temple. So it's littered with 3 as the magic number. And as an aside, if you've never heard any of Mozart's Magic Flute, there is a particular aria which is sung by the Queen of the Night. It's commonly known as the Queen of the Night aria. It's amazing, truly amazing. So I would recommend that you listen to that. But if you want something that's even more fun, find the YouTube video of the Queen of the Night aria being sung by a marmot. There are other videos as well of the Queen of the Night aria being sung by a parrot as well. It's fantastic. You will die laughing. It's brilliant. So I would definitely recommend doing that. It's really, really good. So what else can we say about the number 3? Primitive cultures. Now, primitive cultures quite often don't have a word for anything above the number 2. So it goes 1, 2, and then many. It's quite interesting, therefore, that the word 3 is kind of a bridge between something tangible, 1 and 2, and then this kind of infinite number that goes beyond it. There was a chap called Tobias Danzig who wrote in the 1930s that there's a plausible connection between the Latin tres, which means 3, and trans, which means beyond. And then in French, as another example, there's très, which is very, and trois, which is 3. Lots of connections in 3s. So is 3 always the best number? Everything that is a 3, is that great? Well, the answer is no. You've got, The Godfather Part 3. Commonly thought to be the worst of the 3 films. But Godfather Part 1, amazing. Godfather Part 2, even better. It's one of those sequels which is even better than the first film. And then the third is not quite so good. Personally, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was really good, but it isn't as good as Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. So there you go. Godfather Part 3, not brilliant. 3 strikes and you're out. Okay, that's not good. 3 strikes, you're out, finished, off you go, sit back on the bench. A 3-bean salad. Really? 2 beans, 1 bean, not that keen on beans to be honest, so a 3-bean salad, not brilliant as far as I can tell, certainly not for me. And then you've got something really quite serious, the Third Reich. Not something to be joked about at all, but that's an example of where the number 3 isn't a good thing. So what we know is that the number 3, steeped in history, and it's part of our psyche. And being part of our psyche, it is a really important number to think about. And we'll come on to what the significance of this whole number 3 thing is in a minute. But I think, first of all, we've got a call coming through. Yes, we do. It's our French friend, Francois. He's coming through. Francois, are you there?
Yes, hello. Yes, this is Francois. I thank you very much for having me on the program again. What I wanted to say was I'm very interesting about everything you have said about the number 3. And I heard you say that in France we have this slogan, which is liberté, égalité and fraternité. And that made me think that there is one thing that is very dear to the French around the number 3 that you have not included in your list. And I thought I would ring and bring this up to you. And that is that we have this thing. It's a little bit like a delicacy in France. It's like these escargots, or as you call them, these snails or these frog legs, where we are very passionate about it, particularly in Paris, where we enjoy this quite a lot, and it is called the ménage à trois. Yes, that is right. The ménage à trois. So this is the number three. And what I can say is that, well, it's a special thing. If you are not familiar with what a ménage à trois is, essentially you will have three people who will get together and enjoy a little bit of, how do I say, a bit of intimacy together. All three, and well, it can be a beautiful thing. Not everybody, I have to say, in Paris is doing this all the time, but I think it is worth mentioning because this is a very French thing, and well, it is even called a ménage à trois, which is a French phrase. So, well, I think there is a lot about these numbers. This isn't the number three, but if you look at the pattern and you go from 3 and 5 and 7, there is something else which is very French. And this is what we call the 5 à 7. So 5 to 7. And well, if you want to know what this is, I tell you now. The 5 à 7 is something that is very French. Now, think about this. The people in the office, well, they leave the office at 5 o'clock, which is 5. But for some reason, they do not arrive home until around 7. So this is the set. So 5 à 7. So between 5 à 7, there is something going on. And well, yes, it does take time for people to travel from their office across Paris to their home, but it does not take 2 hours, not for everybody. So what are they doing between this 5 à 7? Well, I think some people are meeting for a liaison dangereuse, and well, and some of them will be partaking in this ménage à trois. It's why not? It's a French thing. It's a Paris thing, and it can be quite beautiful. So. Yes, I thought I would mention this. This is the power of numbers, and in fact, there we have the number 3 we were talking about, and then 5 and 7. So altogether, those are 3 numbers. And well, yes, all good things come in a 3. And you know what is funny? There is this saying that Paris is the city of love, and well, every night one half of Paris is making love to the other half of Paris, and this is sometimes true. But when it comes to the ménage à trois, well, I would change this, and I would say that every night there is 2/3 of Paris who is making love to 1/3, or the other way around. I do not know. I do not participate in this thing myself. You understand? I tell you because this is I thought I enjoy the show, and I think that it is interesting what you are talking about with the number 3, and well, I thought I would bring it up. Anyway, thank you very much, and I will speak to you again at some point when I ring in on one of the shows in the future.
Well, Francois, what do I say to that? That was not what I was expecting, but as always, Francois, very funny, and well, there you go. So take from that what you will. 3 is a very powerful number. Right, so let's come down and cut to the chase. What is it about the number 3 that's relevant to us when it comes to focusing, taking action, and getting results? It's really simple. When you are setting goals for yourself, don't set too many. If you set 5 or 6 or 7 goals, the chances of you achieving any of them is very, very small. And the more of the goals that you set at the high level, these ultimate goals, the more that you set, the less likely you are to get any of them done. So there's a correlation there. Set more goals, less likely to get things done. If you set too few goals, well,
okay, you might achieve them, but there's this thing about always ask a busy person to get something done. Why do you do that? Well, because a busy person knows how to get things done. They know how to focus and concentrate and drive and push, etc., because they've got a lot on their plate. If you don't have very much to do, you've just got one goal, it's really easy to get distracted by other things. It's really easy to kind of go, oh, do you know what, I've got this one goal, yeah, I'll do some things towards it, and then I'll do some other stuff too, and I'm not really focused on it, etc. And you can get more out of yourself. To be honest, if you set just one goal, you're probably leaving other things you could achieve on the table. So, don't set too few goals, because frankly apathy and lethargy will get you to maybe achieve them, but it might well take you longer to achieve than if you actually had the right number of goals. And if you set too many of them, you're not going to achieve them. You're going to get frustrated because you haven't done enough on goals 1, 2, 4, 5, etc., because you were focusing in on some of the other ones, and it's just frustrating. So there is an optimal number of goals to set for yourself, and that optimal number is, yes, you've guessed it, it is 3. So we think as human beings in terms of 3s. We've gone through a whole load of examples in literature, journalism, in slogans, in music, etc. It's ingrained into us. It's just part of our psyche. So when you're setting goals for yourself, set 3. Not 4, not 2, certainly no more than 3, certainly no less than 3. Okay? So there we are. That's the message for today. Hope you found that interesting, that fly through of all the things that are there in literature, music, journalism, art, etc., to do with the number 3. And I would just like to say thank you very much to Francois for your highly inappropriate interjection there. But we welcome everybody onto this show. We do want to make it interesting and entertaining. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Focus Action Results podcast, and I really look forward to speaking to you again in the next one. Until then, take care.
I hope that was helpful for you today and you enjoyed listening to the Focus Action Results podcast. If it was either helpful or enjoyable, or heaven forbid both, please subscribe, leave feedback, share with friends and family, and tweet it loud with the hashtag Focus Action Results podcast.